Thanks for tuning in. I'll be presenting Livebench, a challenging contamination-limited LLM benchmark. This is joint work with 18 authors across Abacus AI, NYU, NVIDIA, UMD, USC, and Columbia. So in the age before LLMs, benchmarking was somewhat straightforward. We would release a training set and a test set, and then the community would design new methods to optimize performance on the test set. An example of this is ImageNet, which spurred advances in computer vision for many years. However, now in the age of LLMs, benchmarking is a bit more complex, and it's because these LLMs are trained across basically the entire internet. So as soon as we release a new benchmark, all future LLMs will have contaminated scores. There's clear evidence of this contamination happening and affecting benchmark scores. And also, there's no reliable method to stop contamination. Oftentimes, benchmark questions might be paraphrased and put on other places in the internet, so it's not realistic to filter questions out from training data. So this contamination is a major downside of any benchmark that's released and open sourced at one point in time. There's other benchmarks. For example, Chatbot Arena relies on human judging to get around contamination. And it's a very nice benchmark. However, there might be certain downsides, like there might be biases, and it might be better for certain questions versus others. Another downside of current benchmarks is that they might be too easy. For example, some of these classic benchmarks on the right have scores above 90%, and also some benchmarks might have a bit narrow scope. So all that being said, we released Livebench, a new LLM benchmark, which gets around all of these downsides. So Livebench has wide coverage across 6 different categories. It makes use of ground truth answers, which all have an objective answer, so no biases. Livebench is challenging for frontier LLMs. And also, crucially, Livebench is frequently updated. So the questions are often updated with recent information sources in order to minimize contamination. And now Samuel will discuss more details on Livebench.
So to generate our questions, we could use 3 different types of methods. So one, we could rely on recent information sources like recent news articles or recent data sets. We could also synthetically generate questions, like you could do that with logic puzzles, use some algorithm to do that. Or we could craft questions by hand, like with this question, this spatial reasoning question at the bottom. We also want to make sure that our questions are difficult and uniformly so across given tasks and categories. And many of the subtests that we have maybe natural difficulty hyperparameters, and we'll sample uniformly from that, which then means that we can accurately sort of rank all of our models so that the smaller models have lower Livebench scores and the more frontier models have higher scores. We can also look at the performance of different models on these different categories and tasks and look at correlations between them. And here we see that the math, coding, and reasoning categories, they all correlate well with each other, while as the language, data analysis, and instruction following tasks, they don't correlate as well among themselves or with those other 3 categories, which means really we have these 4 main dimensions in Livebench: math, coding, reasoning as one, plus language, plus data analysis, and plus instruction following. And on the right, we can see that the Olympiad task, which is a sort of math plus reasoning task, provides a lot of signal for these models, whereas the like zebra puzzles or the CTA have less information in them. And finally, we can look at the average Livebench score across perhaps just the reasoning domain, and we can see here that O1 Mini sort of punches well above its weight here. It's particularly good here on the right. We're looking at residuals, and it's particularly good at the zebra puzzle task, but relatively not as good at plot unscrambling. So thanks for listening to us about Livebench. This is an open source project, and we'd love to collaborate with everyone on GitHub to keep generating new questions and evaluating new models. Thank you all.